I think Lithuanian is a very unique language, and anyone who has the opportunity to learn it um, is in for a treat. It's pretty hard, but it's pretty unique. Lithuanian is considered by linguists to be the most archaic Indo-European language, so uh, almost more like a proto-Latin. And not that Latin would actually help you very much to learn Lithuanian. You might be able to piece a few things together. Like I figured out maybe the word for view is kind of like the word in Latin, like Vaizda, it's like vista or vista, whatever it is in Latin. So it's a very, very, very old language, and you can actually kind of feel that when you speak it. Um, all, they have very few. Of course, they do have some slang, but in general, it feels like a very, very old language, and it sounds like it too, I, especially with some kind of dialects. The to I guess you probably already heard some of it spoken by me, but I think in general most people think it kind of sounds like uh, Russian and maybe even like a Indian language, because Lithuanian really is kind of has that many features that are old, that it even relates to some Indian languages. For example, like Sanskrit, which is dead now, but is kind of like the liturgical liturgical. I don't even know how to pronounce that word in English or in any language. Um, Language for India. That language has words that are very, very similar in Lithuanian. For example, avis, which means sheep, is also a word in Sanskrit. Dumas in Sanskrit is the word for smoke in Lithuanian, even though in Lithuanian they would say it in the plural more often, like dume. Oh, I think. Um, so yeah, there's features that are really interesting about it from a scholarly perspective, um, but from a learning the language perspective, I Lithuanian has very, 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 very few idioms, which is kind of strange, but might be a relief to anyone learning the language. That for the most part, when a Lithuanian is speaking, they're going to speak in a very literal sense. Uh, I can think of more idioms in Spanish, and I don't even remember Spanish than I can in Lithuanian. Um, you can learn a few idioms. They're fun. For example, I kind of a way to, like in English we say go see a man about a horse. That means to go to the bathroom. In Lithuanian they say I'm going to the gnomes. That's a fun one. Um, they'll also say I don't turn my head, and that kind of means don't bother me, or uh, don't make me mentally, or don't make me think too much. Don't like give me questions. That one's still a little hard to understand because they have so few idioms. The language is, you can kind of see some influences that, or it feels very pagan compared to English, and English seems to be, when missionaries have the opportunity to teach English, and English seems much more like a trading language, because we're so. Although as English speakers may not be notice it, we care about quantity and whether you can count it. While Lithuanian doesn't care about that, they care about other things. Um, and some things are not as big of a deal in the modern language, but for example, transitivity, whether things are being acted upon, whether the object is inanimate or animate. Um, and there's a vocative, that's pretty fun, which means you say something different when you're talking to that object or person than if you're talking about the object. So in English, the O without an H, kind of maybe at the beginning of a prayer, um, or would be like a vocative equivalent, or the phrase "Your Highness" could maybe be thought of vocative. For example, you say "Your Highness" when you talk to Your Highness, or sorry, when you talk to His Highness, because, but when you talk about the king, you call him His Highness. So that's pretty fun, and can be fun as a missionary, because you can talk to objects. Sometimes members think that's pretty funny. Like we were looking for a letter, so or someone was looking for a letter in a meeting. So my, my companion, missionary companion, started under his breath saying "letter, letter." It was pretty funny. So the language is pretty unique and pretty difficult and pretty fun to learn.